the man who assassinated Yitzhak Rabin a hero, and you take exception to that kind of speech as well.
Well, that was the situation where, again, the law is not involved. That was a situation where we had, for 20 minutes, within days after the assassination of Rabin, a Jewish activist sitting there with a sign, Rabin was a traitor. I don't see this is a legal issue. I think this was in bad taste. And 60 Minutes and other organizations, media organizations, often are much more sensitive to their audiences. But let's not leave the legal issue yet. It's the other issues there is more consensus about. When Gordon Liddy says, shoot at FBI or at police, but aim at their heads because they wear vests which protect their main body, this is speech. But I think that's accomplice to crime.
You're talking about comments made recently by G. Dr. Etzioni, let me make it clear. You're talking about comments made recently.
Too close to action.
You're talking about comments made recently by G. Gordon Liddy on his radio program. So you think G. Gordon Liddy should have been prosecuted for saying that?
Everybody who in effect facilitates crime should come under the law which says you can say what you please, but you cannot facilitate killing people. You see, we have a saying that it's better to let 1,000 criminals to go free than jail one free person. But we don't have a saying that it's okay to kill 1,000 people so the press can have one more false story.
But we have such a strong and appropriately strong tradition of protecting political speech, including hyperbole and very strong and offensive rhetoric. And I think that's what Liddy was engaging in. In fact, there's a very similar case that went to the Supreme Court in which the Supreme Court unanimously overturned a conviction of somebody during the Vietnam era who said, if I ever get a gun, it was somebody who was being drafted and sent to Vietnam, the first man I'm going to get in my sights is LBJ. And he was prosecuted, and the court said, that is hyperbole. That's his way of very strongly and forcefully making a point that every American citizen has a point to make, namely criticizing the government and its policies. And I think that's all that Liddy was doing. He was criticizing certain government law enforcement agents, which he has a free speech right to do and a responsibility.
John, let's say that Dr. Etzioni, let me get John Siegenthaler on the conversation here for a moment. Let's say someone heard Liddy say that, and a month later they go out and shoot a government agent in the head, and G. Gordon Liddy suggested I do that. Is that Liddy's fault?
Well, I think that's a question for the Justice Department at that point. If they can determine the cause and effect was there, perhaps our Attorney General or some prosecutor in some state would bring that action. The real question, though, we're talking about here is, let's just say that Dr. Etzioni is right, and we're going to ban G. Gordon Liddy from the air for what he said. And the next question then is, do we ban that man from standing on the street we saw in that film a little bit earlier and prevent him from saying St. David's is a fag church? An absolutely reprehensible thing to say. But somebody would want to take him off the street. Do we then take away from those outrageous young men we saw on that screen a few moments ago promoting skinhead and Nazi rhetoric? I mean, I don't want to hear that. But somebody else is going to make a judgment that they should be banned. And I just worry about where it stops. Once you go down this road and say, let's take G. Gordon Liddy off, then where do you stop? Yeah. Where does the road end?
See, that's known as the slippery slope argument. And that suggests we can do nothing because every time we move the marker a tiny inch over, we're going to add down there at the bottom of the slope. I certainly agree that when people want to express political ideas, they should be protected. No, I would not ban Gordon Liddy, but I would ban certain statements. And what we need to talk about here, and I agree, we should leave the details to the Department of Justice and judges, is the criteria, precisely so we'll not slip down that slope. And the criteria is when words trigger action,
no,
then we need concerns them. When we go and burn people in subway booths in New York City, then we need to be concerned.
That can't be enough, Amitai, and I beg to differ with my friend John here. We cannot say that just because there is some aberrant psychopathic personality who might in fact be triggered to commit a crime by something he reads or sees or hears on the radio, that therefore that would justify punishing the speaker. In fact, I think for a society that values law and order and safety and responsible conduct by its citizens, it's wrong to displace responsibility for the person who actually commits the violent act onto the speaker.
Well, what I should have added, of course, was that inevitably, in my view, given the law that exists on this subject, if Janet Reno decided to bring that prosecution, she's got to take into account that ultimately it's going to get to the Supreme Court, and there's a precedent there that's going to strike it down. So I don't really disagree with you. I'm just saying that it does seem to me that law enforcement will react and has reacted.
Yeah.
We have a case, I think we'll see a little bit of it somewhat later on. 3 young men who...
Well, I can show you right now. Let me stop you. Fine. You've done my introduction for me. Pick a fight and you're on your own. Courts do not protect words that would provoke a reasonable person to violence. So the question is, should the law treat offensive symbols the same way?
Some of you need to go back to your American history books and learn the meaning of the Southern rebel flag.
To some, it is the symbol of the Old South, a sign of Southern heritage. To others, it's a symbol of hate.
Every child out here does not want to be called a rebel.
Those viewpoints are central to a Tennessee murder case. Michael Westerman was flying the rebel flag from his truck the night he was shot to death.
He flew it because that's just Michael.
3 teenagers are charged with the crime, and one suspect's mother says the rebel flag insulted her son.
The young man took the flag, shook the flag in the boy's face.
Is this a case of fighting words? So, Dr. Etzioni, let me ask you, do you think waving a rebel flag should be against the law?
No, because, first of all, it's such a clearly a political symbol, and second, it under normal condition will not trigger action. But I'm sorry we moved away too quickly from the case the ACLU defended of the right of people who specialize, and that's their only purpose for meeting, to seduce children, to meet in the public library in San Francisco and conspire to seduce minors. I think that is an illuminating case. That is close to action when they exchange tips how to do that. But I'm afraid that we're going to spend all the time talking about the finer points of the law. The hate cause on the campus, for instance, from my viewpoint, should be removed, because I agree that the best cure for much of this is more speech. But let me give a quick example. I recently been in a meeting in Aspen, Colorado, where there were 5 newspaper editors on the panel. And a woman stood up in the audience, and she said that her life had been destroyed when she was trying to run for office. The newspapers published all kind of half-true stories, innuendos about her, and she not only lost the election, but she lost her reputation, and they published a retraction somewhere on page 37. And all the panelists, all 5 of them said, sorry, that's the way it is, that's a price we have to pay for the First Amendment. And I suggest, as a little kind of adjustment here, as a little cure, that once every 5 years, every reporter should have another reporter write that kind of story about them. Don't have to publish it. Let them have in the pit of their stomach the kind of feeling usually the subjects have. What happens when somebody takes all your personal life, all your private life, true facts, innuendos, and splashes them on the front page?
Well, we have a publisher and editor with us right now, so let's ask John. Do you think the media could deserve a responsibility test?
I don't think you can put a pain index, a thermometer, in every newsroom of the country. I'd have absolutely no objection to reacting to critical speech of someone with more critical speech. I think that's what the First Amendment's all about. But you know, then where do you stop again? Are we going to say that Hillary and President Clinton are being subjected to pain and suffering, as they certainly are, in the current wave of criticism over a case that's 10 years old? Are we going to say that Newt Gingrich should not be criticized in public life because it's painful and hurtful for him? Something in the newspaper hurts some innocent person every day simply because it's the nature of what happens in our society, and the newspaper is supposed to be and tries to be a mirror of that. Now,
Why are only reporters immune to this kind of coverage?
I wouldn't have